Everyone, welcome, David. And David, I think you're going to introduce yourself. Let's go.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. Great. Thank you for joining this session. So I'm going to talk to you today about mobile edge computing and then how that relates to the future possibilities for boosting player retention, player engagement, and driving monetization of games. So my background, I spent quite a bit of time in a business that we still have that I co-founded called Ding, which is a mobile app that hundreds of thousands of people a day use to send mobile phone top-up back to their families and friends in another country. And that business took a long time to get off the ground, but then started to accelerate. And we now transfer about $500 million of mobile top-up to different countries. And our mobile app is the primary way that people do that. So we were very obsessed with how to get repeat usage and repeat purchases by our users. In this case, not players, but users. But we did a lot in gamification to drive that, because somebody at the end of the day every month needs to top up their phone so that it has data and can make phone calls. But we saw awful retention rates. So somebody would get a top up in month 1, 12 months later, there was less than a 10% chance they would still buy a top up through our app. Obviously they still needed to top up their phone, so it worked. So we did a lot of work on that. And one of the biggest impacting things for that revenue was sending push notifications and reaching out to users to tell them something interesting, give them an offer, compel them to come back and use the service again. So much so that if we got a push notification right, we'd make an extra $250,000 from that push notification. Now our profit and margin was only a section of that, a lot lower margin than a game and a monetization of a game. However, I became absolutely obsessed with notifications and obsessed with all of the problems and the lack of reliability and all the other challenges, which is where I formed and set up OpenBack to, at first, research and understand how push notifications work very deeply, and then understand user and player behavior, and to really understand how you could deliver a better experience for players and users, but also achieve the kind of business goals around monetization. So today I'm going to run through some very quickly on this, some advice and tips for mobile engagement. So how do you reach out to players that have already installed your app, but maybe haven't come back in a while, or you don't have a way to monetize them right now. So everybody will know this. Every game and genre and type of game is different, but retention is typically horrible, and there's a very, very sharp fall off. I mean, I think when we look at some of our hyper casual customers, it's even steeper than that for day one. And really the high level objective is you need to deliver good content to players when the app is closed, but also always bear in mind what's going to make them happy, not annoy them. You don't want people to sort of opt out and turn notifications off. If we think on a 10-year view, which tends to be how I'm thinking about this stuff, we all use our phones, and our phone experience when we take it out is dealing with the notifications that are on the lock screen first. So it's a highly personal way to talk to people, and offers huge opportunities, right? So the retention increases, and we've developed technology so you can measure and say, okay, what percentage of your active users and active players are only active because they clicked on a push notification. At the end of the day, those retention increases drop to your monetization very quickly. So just a 5% increase in those players being retained translates over the lifetime of those players to being 25 to 95% profit. I mean, it depends on your game and your monetization model, but it's a significant impact. It's really, really easy to make a mess of this and screw it up. You can, we have lots of examples. If you check out our Twitter, we kind of make fun of lots of people who do bad jobs of notifications, not just in gaming, but in lots of different sectors. So you've got all sorts of sort of crazy behaviors and repeat delivery of notifications and out-of-date content and all sorts of examples. And really, this is what OpenBack is all about providing the tools to do a great job of that. Otherwise, people are a click away from turning off notifications, and you lose the ability to re-engage that customer. In the end, what players want is something relevant, something useful and interesting, and at the right moment for them when they have time to engage with that. This idea of the right moment to engage with a player is the big factor in why most push notifications have below a 3% click-through rate, right? So you deliver all these notifications to users' devices, to their notification centers and their lock screens, and a tiny fraction of those people actually click on it. And it's because you've no control over catching somebody at a right moment when maybe they have time to sit down and to play and re-engage with your game. The time of day and day of week that you engage and send these messages is a huge opportunity in itself to optimize. You'll see some data and charts here. Even the different regions of the world, you see different profiles and behaviors, and what's the chance that somebody will click through on the notification, right? So you'll see US, Canada, right? Your chance of, and this is based on the time that somebody actually clicked the notification, not when the notification was sent or when the notification arrived to the device, right? So it's when they actually clicked it. The US, Canada spikes in the evening. You can see UK and Ireland, where I'm based. It's much more so in the morning, and day of week shifts. If anybody wants more data on that, just ping me, and we can drill out some aggregated data for different regions and time zones. But having a 30% increase in click-through translates into a 30% increase in people at that stage of your monetization funnel, right? So it's a bit of a no-brainer. Other things we see, pre-permission dialogue, right? So when your app is asking the user permission to send push notifications, it's a really good idea to pop up a message and explain what value that player is going to get. Maybe you're saying, hey, you'll get a special offer, or we'll tell you when when you can play again, or your lives are restored, or you've respawned. Formatting that like a system dialogue. We've done A/B tests, 20% plus increase in likelihood of accepting. One thing we're seeing more and more in games, and this example here is just from the Facebook app, but having a persistent icon or flashing light or something to tell people that they don't have notifications turned on can really help increase the opt-in level. So maybe it's in the settings, or the home screen of the game, or wherever it makes sense, but something to remind somebody that they're kind of missing out. There's something they haven't completed in their profile. Personalizing the content, so really simple things like if there's a sort of a nickname for the player, or the current level they're on, or how many coins they have, or whatever it is, but personalizing the content of the message, it has a massive impact in people clicking through, right? Because it's again back to this point of being delivering something that's very useful to the player. Emojis work is the other point. Done a bunch of testing on this. Include some emojis. It makes it more personal, more relatable, and more likely that your player will come back in. So there's a couple of sort of general tips and tricks. Maybe there's some stuff there that you can optimize in your existing games, or what you're doing that will help you kind of drive your monetization funnel. I think we shift now into sort of edge computing. And where does this play? So, and this is what we and I spend all my time thinking about, right? Is ultimately we do believe that push notifications are broken. If this was a live audience, I'd probably ask you to put your hands up or shout out the first word that comes to mind when I say push notifications. And normally the response is horrible, terrible. I hate them. They're annoying. I turn them all off. These sorts of phrases. Fundamentally, as a mobile app developer, from an engineering perspective, there's two ways to deliver a notification to a user, right? Your app can use local notifications and deliver a notification at some scheduled set time in the future. Very tough to, you have a lot of stuff to build to make that real time, to personalize it. There's no concept in that really unless you build a lot of systems of sort of making that part of a live ops scenario and being able to manage that on the fly without a game release. The other technical way to deliver push notification is with remote notifications, which is what most people think of when you talk about mobile and out of game engagement, where you collect a push token to your back end or some vendor's back end, or you just use Firebase, and then you send off your content with that token, and they make best efforts to deliver it. The cost can get big, if you have a big player base, right? maintaining lots of servers, especially if it's sort of very personalized messages relating to gameplay and specific things, and you can end up with sort of performance degradation and a lot of functionality to build out if you self-build. Really, how push notifications work today, hasn't evolved much beyond email, which is collect all the data to your server, segment that, and then blast that information back out to the particular users. Except, unlike email, right, is really poor delivery rates. What a lot of people don't know, and you can grab white papers on our website and understand it more, but it's actually that the longer it goes from when somebody last opened your game, the lower the delivery rate of a push notification. So if somebody hasn't played your game in a month, less than 50% of your notifications will get through. The lower end Android devices behave the worst. And the reason for this is actually a bunch of reasons that feed together. So if I look at this sort of flow through, right, somebody installs your game on their app, your backend collects that push token, you want to send a message, you send that token and the content to Firebase and APNS for Apple, and they make best efforts to deliver to the device. Thing is, the push token changes. 3% of them change each month. Could be an app update, could be an OS update, could just change. Then Firebase and APNS, there's a whole bleed there of kind of, last in, first out, and throttling. And then really the big reliability problems come where the device itself blocks the app from polling and checking to see if there's any messages awaiting that device on Firebase. So all of that feeds together. Now, this is where we get into mobile edge computing and the opportunity to actually use the power of the app and the compute power on the device to actually manage and execute the business rules, the logic and the content, all device side, right? So you're reducing your cloud costs. You get true real-time behavior so that your players get an amazing experience that's really relevant to gameplay without any lags. And there's also data privacy advantages, right? Because you can use personal information and data locally on the device, but you never need to collect it. And so for games with player audiences that are, maybe US under 13 years old, is typically the big consideration. And there's other legislation coming in around the world. You reach out to me if you'd like to talk more about that. We do a lot in that space. We're working with Disney on some stuff and some other large games. So unlocking the power of mobile edge computing and enabling the device to control more really enables you to deliver great game and player experiences in a much better way, because you go from this idea of blasting stuff out to the server to actually being able to do something that's truly personalized and real time for the user, delivering content and notifications to players in real time, all actually managed and controlled on device within the app, but reaching out to that player who when they're not in the app. And you can do all sorts of clever stuff like using sort of contextual signals, we call them, but different data points. Like one of our really popular ones we see a lot is deliver the notification when somebody plugs their headphones in, right? Because that is an indication that they have time to, they have free time to engage with some sort of content. And why should that content be, not be your game instead of YouTube or Twitch or TikTok or or whatever the case may be. You can also use this edge compute technology to take notifications away again, right? We see this a lot as being a great way to keep lots of players still opted in. So you've got that opportunity to re-engage them and build their retention. And then you also can get lots more metrics. So you can sort of see, okay, this particular notification, that gets delivered every time a player respawns actually is making, 15% of players turn off notifications and stop that thing, or making players uninstall. And you say, okay, that's a great data point and trend to tweak and improve that particular campaign and use case. By using and unlocking the power on the device and the app, you go away from this idea of sort of always controlling everything from the back end, right? What you're really doing is putting the content, the rules, the logic app side, but you're able to control and change all of that from dashboards on the back end. So it's a real hybrid solution. You'll see here some extra data I kind of showed already, but as you dig into devices, you start to see things like Huawei phones, Sony phones. The delivery rate for push notifications is incredibly low when you start to do the conventional approach, which is a real reason why the click-through rate is so low. If you start to get the app on the device itself to control it, you start to see massive gains in deliverability, right, in delivery rate, before you've even optimized the content, the personalization, the moment of delivery. Mobile Edge also enables you to track more data because it's attributed at a per user level. So you're able to see, okay, what players have opted in, did they block or allow notifications based on particular messages, and follow that all the way down to the funnel, so that you can say that you can get really granular on it and say, okay, these notifications drove this percentage increase for this cohort of users from a 7-day LTV basis, for example. So you can really connect the dots in terms of data and really optimize the monetization of your game. And this is sort of talking further about that. And as people go on that journey of optimizing to improve and drive monetization, you start to see more and more opportunities of using signals and changing the moment of delivery. Probably the most powerful one that we see is what we call the unlock signal, right? Where you can deliver the game can deliver a notification when somebody unlocks the device, right? So they're going to see it. You know that there's a strong opportunity for you to land your message and hopefully bring them back in and retain them. Overall, across our people using this approach, you're seeing 30% increase in allow rates, and sometimes people struggle to believe this, but we regularly see a 4 times increase in click-through rates on notifications. Even just sending out the same notifications you might be doing today, but using the edge compute technology stack and approach, you'll see a doubling in click-through rate. We heard that recently from one of our customers at Game Insight, where they were doing some local notifications, shifted over to managing to us, and the click-through rate doubled instantly, which obviously feeds the monetization funnel. One of the big future trends, we believe it will happen, and we're seeing more and more of, is actually where gameplay gets extended to the lock screen, right? So there's some screenshots here on this slide around, ways that users can interact directly from the lock screen, and it could be, liking somebody's post on Instagram, or it could be replying to a WhatsApp message directly from the lock screen, right? We believe that over the next couple of years, we'll see gameplay extend to that. We're already working with a big MMO game where you'll be able to, turn your shields on if you're being attacked straight from your lock screen. So you're not actually even opening the app to engage in the gameplay. You're extending that gameplay and that experience to the lock screen, which we think is a super, super exciting development. And we think about how we'll all use our phones in 10 years' time. It will be about the apps and games on our phone reaching out to us and engaging with us in a really kind of interesting, helpful, contextual way. It'll be less and less about the person remembering to, hey, I must play the game again, or I have some free time, why don't I play this game? If you're going to self-build some of this stuff and to execute and manage campaigns, device side and self-build, I think the big thing and how we've built out our platform, but is using local notifications. Make sure to cancel those local notifications again. If you set a local notification for 3 hours time for when somebody will have their energy is restored, make sure that if they come back into the game before that energy is restored, that you cancel that notification. You also need to make sure you kind of clear badge counts. So it's sort of we're seeing that, and obviously the latest version of Android support that, iOS does, but you want to do that. I think probably the difficult things to do if you go the self-build approach is how do you get the app to run in the background efficiently, stay alive. You can't keep an open socket, obviously, for battery reasons, and the device will just shut that down. And then how do you building out your dashboard so that you can take advantage of the real-time personalization and orchestrating across. I think to summarize, using mobile edge computing to reach out to your mobile app players outside the app, think about reliability, being super engaging and as relevant, then being data compliant, especially as you get into personalization. So that's the end of my talk. I'd be delighted to chat with anybody who kind of wants to explore the concept further, has been working on stuff in this area. Maybe I think one topic I'd love to engage further with people is around this idea of extending gameplay out into the lock screen. So thank you very much. I'm going to take a look on Pine and just see if there's any questions. I think
Thank you very much for your
all clear on questions.
very small delay, so we need to wait a bit before the questions start popping up.
Okay.
I'll start with the question of myself. Firstly, you mentioned that you can add contextual actions to notifications on the lock screen. Can you give some examples of these actions in games, actually? Because you mentioned Instagram like that.
Yeah, so you can basically, what you can do is you can have the sort of actionable notifications. You can basically hook them up to call back into your app and execute particular functions. There is multiple technical ways to do it. The most common we've seen is actually when you click that action button and that actionable notification, it actually just calls a deep link to the app. And the payload within that deep link could include whatever intent or whatever specific parameters or data you want to call within your game. So that's probably the most common mechanism of doing that we've seen. Yeah.
All right, thank you. There doesn't seem to be any questions from the chat. If you want to, we can wait for a few seconds more and end the lecture.
Sounds good.